A couple of days ago, Dead by Daylight received a major patch that addressed a couple of things with the game. Two in particular are the biggest: the progression system and game balance. Let's start with the progression system. They've made major changes and improvements to the progression system. Perks are easier to get, you don't lose items and add-ons for prestiging, and they've increased the prestige cap to level 100, so you can show off your prestige level or get bullied because of it. Everything for the progression system was handled perfectly, except for the rewards for the most dedicated players. If you'd reached Prestige 3 on characters before this update, you were given a legacy character portrait. These portraits are really just red backgrounds and they seemed rather lazy. On top of that, someone with 8,000 hours in the game got the same reward as somebody with 800 hours in the game. It didn't really feel like much of a reward, and you couldn't even show it off. Moving on to balance changes. I'll start off by saying most of the balance changes to the game were necessary and completely warranted. Dead Hard and Pain Res getting nerfed is great, and perks like Hope and Monstrous Shrine getting buffed, that's great as well, in my opinion. My problem with the patch so far is how the game feels to play. When I play Survivor, about 80% of the time I'm playing solo. So I'll preface what I'm about to say by saying I am talking from a solo queue perspective, or a solo or duo queue perspective, and I'm also sure that there are matchmaking issues, so I'm not sure if the reason that Solo Survivor feels bad to play is because of the killer changes or the matchmaking issues that are going on right now. That is an important thing to keep in mind. Right now, a lot of my games as Survivor feel unwinnable. Now, I'm not saying that the game should not be hard for survivors. I enjoy challenging games as Survivor and Killer. What I don't like is the feeling the game is unreasonably stacked against me whenever I play either role. To reiterate, when I talk about Survivor as a role, I am talking about solo queue. I don't play with a Swift enough to intelligently speak about how the game feels for them after this major patch. The two main problems for survivors are as follows: gens taking forever, and what the game expects from survivors. But before I complain about Survivor, let me talk about Killer first. I've always enjoyed playing Killer, mostly because I have no friends. But it was always a little stressful. So I'd have to be in the mood to play Killer. But now that killing player is a little more forgiving, I can play Killer whenever I want and not have to try super hard every game, which is pretty great. I feel like I can play any killer without the strongest perks and get good results, or at the very least have fun. Also, in my Survivor games, I've seen a lot more killer diversity, so that's always great to see. I've seen more hillbillies and trappers and onis now than I've seen ever. I assume because the game feels better to play for killer, even if you're not playing a top tier killer. Now that I've mentioned that, let's talk about gen speeds and what the game expects from survivors. The 10-second increase to all the gens is fine. I am perfectly fine with that. My problem is now that Ruin is nerfed, most of my games I see a combination of Thanatophobia, Gift of Pain, or Pentamental. It's mostly Gift of Pain and Thanatophobia combo together. And it feels awful to go against. Sitting on a gen for 80 seconds was already rough. And I get pushed off and it gets kicked with Call of Ryan, and I have to sit there for another 80 seconds. But now, with the slowdown, not only am I not interacting with the game very much, I'm holding M1 on my generator, that is taking a long time. Longer than I'd like to sit there. So my problem isn't with the generator speeds being increased, by itself at least. My problem is that generator speeds got increased and these slowdown perks got buffed. Pentimento didn't get buffed, but Gift of Pain and Thanatophobia did get buffed, which a generator speed increase was already a buff for them, so they essentially got two buffs. But I'm fine with all the other killer perks and buffs. The only other perk that I don't like the changes to are Decisive Strike, right? Or is Decisive Strike. And I agree that being forced to tunnel in the in-game was annoying and felt super unfair. When I played Killer, I was like, this guy has fucking Decisive, he gets out for free. And as Survivor, I'd be like, I have Decisive, I get out for free. I'm sorry for this killer, but I'm not gonna lose my fucking brown med kit because he wants to kill. Right? So, decisive being disabled after the exit gates are powered, I am fine with. My problem with it is that the stun duration got reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. The unfortunate thing about decisive was that even when it was 5 seconds, if the killer wanted you dead, decisive wasn't gonna save you from getting tunneled. The killer wasn't gonna get hit with decisive and then be like, oh, I tunneled, let me go away. It's now that guy doesn't have decisive, I can tunnel him now. And with the stun duration being reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds, it's now significantly easier to do that. Especially when you play top tier killers like Nurse and Blight. Oftentimes, it feels like I'm not even running a fourth perk, because Decisive Strike is brushed off so easily by the killer, and then I'm back to being chased. Or sometimes instantly downed if it's a Blight or a Nurse, but those are two specific situations. And I don't understand why the stun duration was reduced when the devs themselves said that they considered Decisive Strike to be mostly healthy for the game. Moving on to my final point about Survivor. As a solo player, I feel that Dead by Daylight is expecting way too much from a group of people who don't know each other and have no communication. I don't even know what perks these guys are running, right? And I'm not sure if this is, again, I'm not sure if this is because Killer is better now, or if there are matchmaking problems. But right now, as a solo player, the game isn't very fun to play. It just feels like their behavior is balancing the game around Survive with Friends to make Killer more fun against Survive with Friends and more viable against Survive with Friends. But in doing that, solo Survivor is hurting the process because there's a lack of communication, there's a lack of information. I don't know what my teammates are doing, how they're doing it. I have to rely on my game knowledge, and I have to hope that they're as good as me, because I can think about what I'd be doing right now. This guy's hooked, the other guy's injured, I'm injured, and the Bill is the last one up, or the last one not injured. I would hope that Bill knew he had to go for the rescue, because the other two are injured. But it feels like the lack of communication just leads to misplays, and the misplays lead to an unfun time, right? However, other than that negativity, I think the meta needed to be adjusted, and I think this patch is really good for the health of the game. As Killer, I'm having a fucking great time, I'll tell you that. I've seen maybe 2 dead hearts, and both of them, people don't know how to use Dead Hard yet, so it was relatively fun. A lot of lights. So I think this patch is good for the health of the game. I just think solo queue, and I guess even Survive with Friends who aren't trying to sweat every game, the game doesn't feel as rewarding. But other than that, I have nothing negative to say about the game. And the prestige reward was a red background, my guy. Come on, man. Anyway, thank you for watching. That's all I have for this video. Yes.